Natalie, feel free to start the live stream.
Thanks, Miss Erica. We are live.
Good afternoon to everyone who has joined in the virtual space. I was just going to say that. Thank you. As we are awaiting HAAB members and our community partners and guests to join in the meeting space, I want to let you know it's a great and sunny day, so a good day to talk about the Rose Quarter Project and community. So if you'll just bear with us for just a moment as we get folks acclimated into the room. HAAB members and our invited guests, if you would please turn on your virtual camera. We would appreciate being able to engage with you. We have a lot of exciting and important information to share with you today. Good afternoon, Dr. Holt. Again, welcome into the space on this Tuesday, March 12th, 2024. Welcome into the I-5 Rose Quarter Historic Albina Advisory Board meeting. Please, we appreciate your flexibility and your patience as HAAB members and our invited guests for this important meeting today are joining us. Hello to all of you who are just joining us in the virtual space. We are giving just a moment for HAAB members and our important invited community guests into the meeting today. We're giving just a moment for technology and to allow folks into the virtual meeting space. Again, we are here for the I-5 Rose Quarter Historic Albina Advisory Board meeting. It is a beautiful sunny Tuesday, at least it is here, and I'm so thankful for the sunshine. Appreciate your patience. We will get started in just a moment. Hello, Raven. Hello, Karanja. Good to see you all in the space. Good afternoon. Good to see you, Miss Kimberly. Stephen, good to see you. And Micah, thank you for your patience. We're waiting for just a moment to allow some additional HAAB members and guests to enter the virtual space. We will get started shortly. Members of the public, if you are hearing us in the live stream, we appreciate you joining us. You can join us via the live stream. And if you have joined us to give public comment, you are welcome to call in to do so. Well, you all, let's see if we have our HAAB members and invited guests. I would love if you all would turn on your cameras so that we can interact. We have a wonderfully exciting and packed interaction today. We appreciate you joining us in the virtual space. My name is Erica Warren. Hello, Miss Winter. So good to see the sun over your shoulder. Welcome, welcome, welcome to all of you. Miss Natalie, if you would display our slide deck, please, I would appreciate it. Well, good afternoon again. Wow, meeting 32, our March 12th, 24 I-5 Rose Quarter Historic Albina Advisory Board. I am Erica Warren. I have the pleasure of working alongside Dr. Stephen Holt, and we are excited to be in this space with you today. I have the privilege of facilitating the Historic Albina Advisory Board under our project director, Ms. Megan Channel, and today is a wonderful day. I am going to introduce you to Dr. Holt and to Megan to lead us into the space.
Thank you very much. If I could have the next slide, that'd be great. Eric, you want to talk them through a little bit of this?
I absolutely will.
Yeah.
We know our meeting is being recorded today as a matter of public record. Thank you for muting yourself if you are not speaking. For those members of the public, please feel free to dial the live stream. We will have an opportunity for public comment today. Next slide. Today, we have a jam-packed agenda. We will have an opportunity for public comment. Once we complete our welcome and introductions, we will tell you a bit about the meeting purpose and the format of how we are going to conduct today's meeting. We have broken up all of this important and juicy information into 3 parts today. The first part, give us a bit of context, a refresher for many HAAB members, general project information, some info around the district, and community priorities that came out of a process a few months back. In part 2, you will hear a bit about the technical assumptions for the highway cover design. I failed to mention in part 1, we will have an opportunity to break into breakout rooms, and then there will be a report out as we come back into the main space so that the public can hear a bit of what we discussed. In part 2, after the technical assumptions piece, we will go into precedents and possibilities for development, which is super exciting. We will also break into small groups in part 3. So we have a bit more opportunity to engage in a more intimate space. And then we will come back into the large group to finish out our discussion. We have built in an opportunity for some breaks today, as we know this is a long time to be sitting in front of your computer. So we appreciate you being in the space with us. Next slide. Before we jump in with Dr. Holt, many of you are familiar with these because you all are working and serving in our community, and we're going to refresh for those who have been in the space with us for some time. Your voice matters. We appreciate you, and we're going to ask you to speak, and we may even call on you. We want to hear what you have to say. You have been invited by additional HAAB members because your voice matters in this process. We thank you. We trust that you'll be authentic and genuine. We ask you to listen for understanding. There will be a lot of information today. We don't expect everyone to gather all of it, but we appreciate you lending your voice and your gifting and your knowledge and education to this conversation today. This is a passion project, some of it laced with historical trauma, but we ask you to deal with issues and not with people. So we're going to be respectful of each other in the space today, and it will be my job to help make sure that we do that. Seeing and hearing and understanding that we may experience some discomfort, but we rarely grow in comfort. So in light of that, we ask you to remain respectfully engaged. If you can, HAAB members and our guests, if you would keep your cameras on. We realize it's a long time and you may have to step away from your camera, but as much as you can, if we can engage to your lovely face, we would love to do that. And then again, expect and accept non-closure. This is a long process. There is a lot of history. We will not be able to solve or dive into everything today, but we expect that which each time we gather together, we will be able to move forward collaboratively. Next slide, please. With that, let's go to the next slide. All right, it looks like, please forgive me, I have 3 screens up. So forgive me. I'm gonna move forward with this because we've had a few shifts today. So please bear with us. We've been pivoting, but all of it is because of some really great and exciting news. So you can go back 1 slide. I want to share with you the community members and leaders and youth ambassadors who are joining us in the HAAB space today, who have graciously agreed to be a part of our conversation. We thank the HAAB members who have invited these community leaders to be in our space. I am going to stray a bit from what we anticipated, and I am going to give folks an opportunity to very, very briefly introduce themselves. And so Mr. David Barron, D'Artagnan Kellerman with the 1803 Fund will not be joining us today, but may have an opportunity to dive in around 6 p.m. Mr. Kanan Chapman, and I apologize, we have a spelling error on your name there. Karanja Cruz. Max Decker is a youth ambassador with Word is Bond, and he is unable to join us today, but we do have joining us, and please forgive me if I mispronounce your name, Elijah Graham and Abil Sihel as youth ambassadors to join us today. We also have Lakayana Drury, Mr. Stephen Green, Miss Micah Greenberg, Miss Kimberly Moreland, and Raven Pierce. So I'm going to ask if you would unmute, just give us 60 seconds or less, an organization or your connection to the Albina neighborhood, and I will move very, very expeditiously through that. So because I can see you, I'm going to start with you, Lakayana.
Great afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me here, Lakayana Drury. He, him, his pronouns, Executive Director of Word is Bond, a leadership incubator for young Black men. Our connection to the Albina areas, we do walking tours through the area. We've done so for the last couple of years. So if you've been on any of our In My Shoes walking tours, those are youth-led walking tours. A lot of our young men in our program live in those communities as well. So that's our my connection to this. And then also I am a member of the Oregon Commission on Black Affairs. So wearing 2 hats today. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. If I could jump to Elijah. Elijah, if you could unmute yourself. Has Elijah joined yet? I'm scrolling through so many beautiful Black faces.
He put his in the chat. Looks like his mic isn't working.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us, Elijah. And please forgive me if I've mispronounced your name. Abil?
Yeah, Abiel. So my name is Abiel. I'm part of Word Bond. And yeah, that's how I connect to Albina. So.
That is awesome. Thank you for being with us today. Raven, if you would briefly introduce yourself.
Hi, you all. My name is Raven Pierce. I am connected through Sprinter Vasa Brown. She was the one that invited me to be here. And yeah, I actually was a part of some of the focus groups with, I think, ZGF back in the day when this project was first started. So glad to be here again.
Thank you. Raven is a wonderful ambassador, youth leader, studying urban design. So excited to have you in the space with us today. Mr. Karanja Cruz.
Yes, Karanja Cruz, Portland native, Northeast Portland, alumni of Harriet Tubman, Benton High School, Boise Elliott. I was a public school teacher for over 13 years. Now I'm an entrepreneur. I owned the first Black-owned dispensary in Portland, Oregon called Green Muse, formerly Green Hop. And I also am the founder of Teaching with Purpose, who trains teachers around the community to be more culturally relevant in their practice. And we do an annual conference every year. And I advocate for effective education in our community.
Thank you so much for being with us today. We appreciate having you. Micah.
Micah Greenberg. I'm the VP of Investment at the 1803 Fund. The fund focuses on a rooted and prosperous Black community here in Portland, Oregon. And we're excited to be kind of focused on supporting the redevelopment of Lower Albina.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Kimberly?
Hello, everyone. Kimberly Moreland. I'm the president of the Oregon Black Pioneers, community historian and author of a book about Portland's African American community.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us. Stephen.
Stephen Green, lived in Northeast Portland the last 20 years, entrepreneur and angel investor here in town, and founder of Pitch Black and former COAC member for this project. So excited to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for being with us. Has Kanan joined us yet? And briefly, I'll step outside of protocol and take the liberty. Ms. Joy Elise, if you would introduce yourself. I know this is your first meeting with us as a member of the Historic Albina Advisory Board.
Thank you so much. I'm really honored to be here. Hey, folks. Joy Elise, my pronouns are she, her. I'm the president and executive director of Imagine Black, formerly known as the Portland African American Leadership Forum. We're a civic engagement and democracy, Black-led and Black-serving org here in Oregon, and really honored to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I will just say Kanan is a Portland native, another Benton Techman in the room, Karanja, and working with Anderson Construction and involved in a number of community initiatives here. And so as he joins in, we'll make sure to highlight him. Next slide, please. Mr. Barron, I am so sorry. Did I see David in the room yet? David Barron? I don't see that he has joined the meeting with us, but also a guest of Andrew Campbell from Word is Bond. Next slide. I believe that I have gone well over in shifting, and I am going to shift back to Dr. Holt to give us some context in regards to what we are going to be talking about today.
Thanks, Erica. Appreciate that. Thanks for opening up our moment. I think that we had a slide related to restorative justice. Is that slide still there? While our tech people work out their magic, let me kind of contextualize our efforts for today and why we're here. And I want to be very simple as much as possible. So I hope no one is insulted with the simplicity of the illustration I'm going to use. But I'm going to take that illustration to lay down some points. Erica, you called this a passion project. You identified it as a passion project, and I think it fits in to that context. Many of us know the nursery rhyme, Humpty Dumpty. You remember Humpty Dumpty who sat on the wall, Humpty Dumpty who had a great fall. All the king's horses, all the king's men couldn't put Humpty back together again. I want to use that to illustrate what we're doing in this space. If you will allow for a moment Humpty to be, there it was, I saw it. If you would allow Humpty to represent people who have been marginalized, people who've been fragmented, people who've been deprioritized. Let Humpty represent people who've been pushed to hard places, difficult spots, walls. Not many people sit on walls, not because they choose to. Life pushes you to a wall, or circumstances or situations. And personally, I don't think Humpty fell. I think Humpty was pushed. I think Humpty was pushed off the wall. I think pressure, problems, and lack of support pushed Humpty. So let Humpty represent the marginalized, the deprioritized. And then let the king's horses and the king's men represent government and agency. The government comes, an agency comes to fix the problem and try to resolve the issues. And they can't do it by themselves. This moment, this opportunity, this passion project, and what we're trying to do in this space is to address the splatter that matters. People who've been fragmented, displaced, disenfranchised, pushed into hard situations, and then have their life impacted, have an opportunity now to have something meaningful done for them. But it's going to require others who understand that experience. It requires other people like Humpty, who've been fragmented and disenfranchised and deprioritized, to come into a space like this and put forth the right kind of effort to put Humpty back together. Again, after all, it is the splatter that matters. The government prioritized the effort and the opportunity, and we appreciate the work of the Oregon Department of Transportation and the city of Portland to want to prioritize this work, but they can't do this work without the people who've been impacted. They can't do the work without those who were pushed into spaces that they didn't ask for. Restorative justice, then, is really the heartbeat and the number one value that's been stood up in this space. And this value aims to accelerate social, racial, and economic equity, sustaining positive, tangible change, specifically for Portland's Black community. When we talk about restorative justice, when we talk about putting Humpty back together again, this opportunity or this effort is about doing something different and doing something meaningful and hopefully doing something right to undo past harm and to create a space that offers a future and a hope. We bring together and ask others to come into this space because your voice matters, because your insight, because your talent. You know what it is to be marginalized. You know what it is to be disenfranchised. We appreciate the work of the Historic Albina Advisory Board, who've given so much of their time to this effort. We celebrate, and you'll hear more about what's been accomplished. So I'll just kind of toss it into the air that there is something to celebrate, but there's a lot of work still to be done. And so those of you who've been brought into this space, it's because you understand this moment. Now I have to speak to on one other dynamic that is true. So while restorative justice is a passion project, and while the government has prioritized it as they should, and while we've asked other people like Humpty to come into the space, there are still other voices at play in the space. There are people who are looking on. There are people who are watching the moment and have opinions about it. And they're weighing in. The media has a lot of noise about people weighing in about Humpty and Humpty's life. I would say to those who are weighing in that if you aren't Humpty, your voice really should be the voice of somebody who's listening. Your posture should be the posture of someone who's supporting. If you have not been marginalized, and if you have not been disenfranchised, and if you have not been fragmented, you can't speak to the weight of that, the trauma of that, the pain of that. So take a great posture of privilege and listen. Take a great posture of privilege and learn. This work today is the work of people who understand the weight. This work today is the work of people who prioritized it. And that's what the government represents. That's what Humpty represents. And this moment represents. It is a passion project. We invite you to participate by being some, great supporters as we do some incredible work together. So that's our context. That's what we're going to do. For those of you who've been invited into the space, help us think, help us process, help us plan. Back to you, Ms. Erica.
So much. Thank you, Dr. Holt. Very good. Good to see your face, JT. Thank you for joining us in the space. I will now shift to our director, Megan Channel.
Hey, everyone. And Dr. Holt, I can't beat that. Like, so good. So good. Thank you for those remarks. And for those that don't know me, I am Megan Channel. I'm the Rose Quarter Project Director with the Oregon Department of Transportation. So excited to see our HAAB members, but also thank you, HAAB guests, for being here tonight. I know it's a big ask to spend 3 hours in front of your computer with us, but we promise we'll make it worth your time, and really looking forward to hearing your voices. So just setting context for tonight, I'll jump into that, but I am far too excited about two pieces of news that have I guess, around the milestones that we've achieved this week, and it's only Tuesday. So want to just acknowledge and specifically thank our Historic Albina Advisory Board for your leadership, your support in helping get $450 million for the I-5 Rose Quarter Improvement Project to focus on completing the design of the project and then getting to work on the core reconnecting component of the project, the highway cover. We will be joined a little bit later by ODOT Director Strickler as well. So I don't want to steal too much of the thunder, but I'm just too excited to not acknowledge that and say thank you. And, HAAB specifically, you were the community voices that helped push us to make such a large ask as well, which led to a tremendous grant. And I think the largest grant that has ever been awarded to ODOT in history of $450 million. So just a huge thank you to HAAB and our community partners in helping us get there. It's a significant moment. The second piece of good news that I want to acknowledge and thank everyone, partners at City of Portland, our Historic Albina Advisory Board, other agency partners, Albina Vision Trust, all of these partners in not only getting us the grant, but also moving forward to receive the federal approval for the project's environmental review. So today, our federal partners at the Federal Highway Administration published their final approval for the environmental document for the project. And this is a substantial moment because it allows us to complete the environmental review phase and shift into the delivery phase so that we can shift into final design for the project and continue to ready for construction. So two huge milestones that push us forward in bringing this project to a reality and in a way that is helping to achieve that community vision. So we're really, really appreciative of all of our partners around the table for helping us get there. And with that, tonight, building on that excitement, we've got some great information to share specifically around the highway cover. So we'll be sharing some background information just on the general project, kind of where we are today, and providing some clarity also on what the projects can achieve relative to the highway cover design. I'm kind of teeing up the opportunities for future development and economic opportunity on top and around. So again, welcome guests into our HAAB meeting space. I am really excited to make sure that in that conversation, we're getting the broader representation from Albina community. Please, the point of tonight is we want to hear from you, and your feedback is really helping to guide the project into this next phase of design. So make your voices heard. We're excited to hear your perspectives and inputs, looking for feedback on community priorities that are most important to you, as well as getting your input on the development possibilities on highway cover and their alignment with the community values and priorities. So this is also the first opportunity that we've invited guests into the space and participating. And we hope that this isn't the last time that you'll participate with us. So we hope to kind of continue conversations as we go forward in delivering the project. So with that, I will pause and turn it back to Erica. And then we'll you'll see me back. And just a flag, a note that our ODOT director, Director Chris Strickler, will be joining us closer to 5 o'clock. So if we are in breakout rooms and you suddenly kind of get pulled out of a breakout room, we'll have a quick moment with the director, and then we'll kind of get back to our conversation. So just want to acknowledge you may see that happen. So Erica, back to you.
Thank you, Megan. I also want to acknowledge Counselor Ashton Simpson. I did not know you had capacity to join tonight, so thank you for being in the space. I also believe that Kimberly Horner may be in the space with us as well as an invited guest, so thank you all for being in the space. If you could bring the slides back up to the Mentimeter icebreaker. And we are going to be utilizing Mentimeter, which is a software tool for us to capture some of your responses. We will be breaking out into some small rooms. There will be note takers, etc., for us to be able to capture your thoughts and input. But we want to get you familiar with Menti with just this quick icebreaker question. I'd like for you to read this and think about, House of Sound or Cleo's, or let's see what other buildings are there. Lillian, Cleo Lillian Social Club, and Dude Ranch, and other memories. There's a picture there of the groundbreaking for Albina 1. So think about something you love or a fond memory about Albina, past or present. If you would look in the chat, HAAB members and invited guests, in the chat, there is a link to the Menti. We will be using this throughout our time together. So if you click on that link and open it either on your phone or in your browser, you can leave that open and it will allow us to gather some additional information in the meeting as we move forward. So if you all would click on to the Menti link there. If you need the code, it is also in the chat. And as you all begin to share your memories, they are going to populate on the screen for us to see. HAAB members and HAAB guests. I see Geneva's going to Geneva's Barbershop. Others? We want to get you familiar just with using the tool and sharing some great hopes, the new development opportunities, indeed, what will look like in the future. Groundbreaking for Albina 1, the Youth Design Forum, yes. Walking tour with Word is Bond. Come on, Doris's Soul Food Cafe, indeed. Yes. Trees and nature, indeed. Good in the Hood, Dawson Park, indeed. Mr. Washington, are you going to share?
Well, yeah, but James Posey is trying to get in.
Okay,
Having a little bit of a problem.
Thank you so much for letting me know. I didn't see a message, but we will make sure that our technical support staff will get Mr. Posey into this space. Yes, the Williams and Russell development, indeed. Indeed. So keep that Menti screen open, if you will. We will utilize it in other portions of our meeting to gather some additional thoughts and information today. So we appreciate your participation there. Next slide, please. At this time, we are going to open up the space for public comment. And I will turn things over to my colleague Natalie, who will walk us through the public comment instructions and how to engage there.
Thank you, Erica. Members of the public viewing the meeting on the YouTube live stream are invited to make verbal public comment by phone at this time. If you wish to do so, please dial the phone number shown on the screen here on the right side. And when prompted, enter the meeting ID and passcode. I'll go ahead and read the numbers here. Call 971-247-1195. Enter meeting ID 829-7848-7330 and enter passcode 007409. I'm just realizing there might be a slight change to that on the YouTube live stream. So I'm noticing there's an error on the slide. The correct number is, the phone number is correct. The meeting ID is 836-9643-3080. And then the passcode is 626399. So please go ahead and dial those in and we will put you in the waiting room and ready for public comment. Speakers will have up to 2 minutes to make their comment and will be muted at time. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and look to our waiting room, and I saw a commenter just a moment ago, and now it appears they have dropped off. I hope it was not confusion due to the numbers on the screen there.
Natalie, could you repeat the meeting ID and passcode again?
Yes. So it is listed correctly on YouTube. Enter meeting ID 836-9643-3080 for the meeting ID, and for the passcode, enter 626399. And that will put you in the virtual waiting room to make a public comment. And I'm not seeing anyone in the waiting room at this time. I'm going to just check again. I know we had a public commenter in the waiting room a moment ago, and they dropped off. So I'm hoping that they can rejoin us.
We're going to give just 2 minutes. So if y'all will be patient, just a moment. Natalie, one additional time, if you'll repeat the correct meeting ID, I would appreciate it.
Absolutely. So the phone number is, as you see it, 971-247-1195. And the meeting ID is a little different than what's shown on the screen. It's 836-9643-3080. And passcode is 626399.
Okay, Miss Natalie, I think it's okay for us to move forward.
Okay,
For
thank you.
those who may be joining us on the live stream and still wish to give public comment, you still can do so. There's an opportunity for you to contact us, and you can send an email or leave a message. Please avail yourself to the I-5 Rose Quarter website and make sure that you plug into all of those ways to submit public comment. They will be shared as they are each time we receive them with the Historic Albina Advisory Board for input. Next slide. And the next slide. All right. Am I shifting back to you, Miss Megan?
I think you might cover this one, but I'm happy to jump in now if that's helpful.
No, ma'am, I am there. All right, for those of you all who are just able to join us, and as a recap, you all, today we have done our best to take a large chunk of information and to break it into 3 parts. For many of you, this will be an overview. For some of you, this will be the first time that you've really dove into the general project information and seeing kind of the plan for the complete district and community priorities. There are a lot of exciting reinvestment opportunities and possibilities happening in our community. And so the Rose Quarter is one piece of that puzzle. So we want to bring context to the work that we're doing. Part 2, technical assumptions for the highway cover design. We're going to be sharing those. Our A&E team will be sharing with you in regards to that. And then in part 3, precedents and possibilities for development. And in part 1 and 3, we will be breaking into small groups. So you all have been pre-assigned to some breakout rooms. We will have a discussion. There will be a note taker and a report out as we come back into the general main room. At the end, we will have a large group discussion and time for reflection. I believe that our public commenter has joined the space again. And so I'm going to give an opportunity for our public comment at this time before we move on into the meeting. Miss Natalie, if you would go back to the public comment, we want to make sure to give the public an opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Erica. Apologies to the public commenter for the confusion. We've gone ahead and admitted you into this space. The phone number ending in 5424. We will allow public comment at this time. If you would like to unmute yourself and provide your comment, we will go ahead and share the 2-minute timer. We welcome you to make your comment now. You may have to unmute yourself in Zoom. You can do that by dialing *6 on your phone.
Hi, this is Joe Courtwright. I'm with No More Freeways. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify. I want to note that it's significant that the federal government has recognized the severity of the damage done to the Albina neighborhood and is willing to put up $450 million to begin to repair that damage. And this clearly is a time for restorative justice. But in the view of our organization, No More Freeways, the way to restore that damage is not to build a wider freeway. There's a lot that can be done, that should be done to improve the neighborhood. And I think if you look carefully at what the Oregon Department of Transportation has been telling the HAAB for the last several years about what they can do with federal money and with highway money, it's incorrect. At your last meeting, you were told that you couldn't even build strong enough supports over the freeway in order to support buildings or significant development. That is not true. ODOT routinely spends money mitigating the environmental, social, and economic effects of projects that it has undertaken. It has spent money on a variety of such mitigations in an environmental sense. And around the country, in Reno, in Louisville, Kentucky, and in Dallas, federal highway funds have been used to build housing to replace housing destroyed by highway projects. And in fact, there's an affirmative requirement on the Federal Highway Administration under Title VI of the Civil Rights Act to repair the effects of past discriminatory practices. That is, they are under an obligation to fix the damage that they caused to the Albina community by unfairly locating not just the I-5 freeway, but Interstate Avenue and the Fremont Bridge off-ramps through the community. It is not too late to fix this project, to right-size it so that you're not building a giant suburban-style freeway that is 160 to 240 feet wide. And the reason the caps are so expensive is because they have to go over a vastly wider freeway. A narrower freeway, one that restricts traffic, avoids more pollution, will be cheaper to build caps over, and will leave resources to genuinely repair the community and provide the kinds of housing and other community amenities that were identified in the process that led to the hybrid 3 alternative. So
Thank
please,
you. Appreciate it.
thank you. Just to wrap up, just look past what the Department of Transportation is telling you. There is much more that can be done to achieve restorative justice. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
And
Are we seeing any additional commenters?
I do not see any other additional commenters.
Great. Thank you for your help, Ms. Natalie. Thank you so much, Mr. Courtright, for your thoughtful testimony. We appreciate you joining us in the space today. If you would please restore our slides, we will move forward in the business at hand. Next slide. All right. We will begin to jump in at this point. Again, our project director, Megan Channel. I do see a hand from Miss Leslie Goodlow.
I'm sorry. So that gentleman has given public testimony a couple of times, and I have to say, whether he's right, wrong, or indifferent, I'm offended at the assumption that the HAAB, that we're not smart enough to do research on our own, or to look past, or to accept everything that we're given at face value, that none of us have done any other research about this project or about what's going to happen. And it just feels very much like, oh, white man, you're going to come in and rescue this for the Black people because we're not smart enough. So whether that was your intention, that's the impact. And that's what I hear when you come and tell us that we're not understanding, or that we don't know, or that we can't figure it out. So thank you so much for your feedback. But I think with the capacity of the people on the HAAB, we've got many, many years of experience in community building, in putting projects together, in work experience, that we know what we are doing and we can figure things out. So I couldn't let this go by again without responding to public comment that assumes that Black people don't know what they're doing.
Thank you so much for your comment, Ms. Leslie. We definitely want to make sure the purpose of this is to elevate the voices of the community that's been marginalized. There are years of education and experience, masters and PhDs, business owners, and public servants in this group. So thank you for speaking out. We applaud and appreciate all of your work. Ms. Megan, to you.
Thank you, Erica. Well, I'm going to jump in kind of to our sort of meat of our meeting today, but I want to take kind of a step back and share some general project information. I'll also be joined by a partner at City of Portland in a couple of minutes here as we talk about kind of the broader district. But wanted to just first and foremost acknowledge and be intentional on centering our project values. So you heard from Dr. Holt earlier that we start with the value of restorative justice, really an acknowledgement of the harm that ODOT caused when I-5 was originally constructed. Acknowledging that history is important in framing how we move forward to ensure that the voices that were intentionally excluded previously are now intentionally included as we move forward, and ensuring that this project, that the benefits of this project are having a tangible effect on Portland's Black community. So that's our key goal around the restorative justice piece, and really guides and frames our work. We also have project values around making sure that we have community input and transparent decision making. This is a transportation project, so we also have a mobility focus focused on all modes as we go forward. And then also making sure that we're carrying forward with intention around this project's opportunities to improve and address public health and climate action. So these are the values that really guide our work, and I hope that you will see infused in the information that's presented this evening as well. I also want to just acknowledge that this project is decades in the making, and there's sort of been a lot that has occurred over the past several years to get to where we are today. And also, like, in that, you know, the project, I'd say, really was kind of our initial concept was originally formed back in 2010 timeframe, and kind of started to carry through in kind of 2016, 2017 in more earnest. And at that time, the project had two separate smaller highway covers that accommodated mostly the road connections and some open space on top. And at that time, we heard from the community, a partnership with Albina Vision Trust, feedback from our Historic Albina Advisory Board along the way, particularly with the independent cover assessment process, acknowledging that we didn't get that design right. And so we're excited to be at a point where we have the right project with the alignment from community that really shifted the project to have now a longer and stronger highway cover that can accommodate buildings on top. You'll hear more about that in just a little bit this evening, but excited to really use this project as a demonstration too for how a transportation infrastructure investment is also a community building project, and the opportunity that we have to use Rose Quarter, our community work, our partnership here with the Historic Albina Advisory Board as a model for other transportation projects going forward, that it's not an either or transportation and community, it's a both and. So I'm just really excited to be here in this space, working through all of this with you. And it's really a new approach for how a Department of Transportation goes forward with this. So also just appreciate, you know, sometimes it's going to be a bumpier ride than we expected, but appreciate you sticking with us along the way, again, and staying true to our project values as we do it. So the map that you see on your screen here provides the overall improvements that we're incorporating as part of the project. You'll see that highway cover, that longer, stronger highway cover that can support buildings on top, shown in purple, that will cross over the improvements that are happening on the I-5 main line. So we are adding one auxiliary lane in each direction on I-5 to address the congestion at Portland, or at the state's top bottleneck on Interstate 5, kind of where three interstates come together. Adding in wider shoulders so that if there's a disabled vehicle, they have an opportunity to move out of the way of traffic, or for emergency responders to be able to use the wider shoulder to get either to an incident or through to the emergency they are responding to. And taking a step back, an auxiliary lane for those that, like myself, don't do transportation every single day. An auxiliary lane is that lane, you know, when you get on a highway and you're entering, takes you directly to the next exit. And so the auxiliary lane connects Interstate 84, which is to the south, to Interstate 405 or the Fremont Bridge to the north, and reduces that merging and weaving that you see and experience on I-5 today. So we'll have improvements relative to traffic flow and also improving safety on the system. In addition to that, we are also relocating the I-5 southbound off-ramp, which you see in red on the map. And all of the I-5 ramps will now be consolidated to the south of the highway cover, really with the intention of making the Broadway and Weidler corridors a people-friendly place that is more human. Like, as you're crossing over the highway cover, it won't feel like you're crossing an interstate anymore in the future with the project. So that ramp consolidation to the south is really important in kind of, again, achieving the vision for this area and promoting development in the central kind of Broadway Weidler corridors. Let's see here, there's a number of multimodal improvements that are part of the project as well, kind of spanning across the local streets, kind of all shown in gray. And as well as a separated bicycle and pedestrian bridge with connections directly into Moda Center up to the highway cover, and kind of tying into and serving as a crossing across I-5 for the city of Portland's Green Loop as well. So those are kind of the key project elements that we'll be moving forward with. On the next slide.
Megan, I believe that the director has joined us.
Oh, wonderful. Well, Director Strickler, thank you so much for joining us in the Historic Albina Advisory Board space. Would love to have you join us and welcome our HAAB members as well as the HAAB invited guests that we have this evening. So without further ado, Director Strickler, our Director of ODOT.
I do see a Chris Strickler listed.
He may be connecting.
He's still connecting to ODOT. I mean to audio. Thank you.
Okay.
That was a big lead up. We needed a drum roll.
Well, perhaps while he's getting connected to audio, I could quickly do a recap of where we are in terms of the project timeline.
Indeed.
Great. So if we could bring up, all right, perfect. So this slide really just is a snapshot of where we've been, but would like to really highlight the where we're going. So we have, as of today, just completed the environmental review phase for the project and really are shifting into, again, that design and delivery phase of the project. The pre-reconnecting communities grant that we received, the funding that we have available for the project focuses on completing the design for the early work packages, as well as 30% design for the main construction package and completing our environmental process. So we'll continue to stay focused on that. We'll be looking to partnership with our federal partners kind of on next steps around infusing this new funding that we just received. But as we go forward and kind of thinking through the 30% design, I guess I'll have another slide that will talk about our design cycle here in a moment, but just sort of acknowledging that the conversation for tonight is really to help inform our main construction package 30% design for the project and kind of kicking off the design of the highway cover. Looking forward, we also will have sort of intersections and partnerships with other efforts happening in this area, specifically with City of Portland and a Reconnecting Communities grant, planning grant that they had previously received. So more to come on how that work will be intersecting with this project work. But again, just want to highlight kind of the where we are and at what point in the design phase we're focused on today. So with that, I'm going to pause, and Director Strickler, I believe you are in the space and connected to audio. I see you, wonderful. Without further ado, I would like to welcome and introduce our ODOT Director, Director Chris Strickler.
Hello, can you guys hear me okay? Wonderful. So first, thank you so much. My apologies for kind of the roaming time. I was trying to time it perfectly so that as I got to Medford, I could jump into my room and jump on, but I was delayed by about half an hour. So thank you for accommodating me for a little bit. I also want to say thank you for giving me a little bit of time on the agenda. I know you've got a full agenda and a lot of things to talk about, and there's a lot to kind of work through on your agenda for tonight. And so I really do appreciate the time, because I like to have just a moment to share and appreciate all the hard work that each of you has put in to get to this kind of momentous point. And so I'm hearing now
obviously in the last few minutes that Megan was sharing part of the good news, which is we have a federally approved project. So yay, congratulations. Congratulations to all of you. That is fantastic. And it comes from hard work from groups like this that really allows us to get those things over the finish line. So thank you very much. I also wanted to mention there's been a lot going on in the DOT space. And so you heard some news yesterday around tolling and some things that we're regrouping on as an agency. And I know timing is sometimes difficult because they tend to overlap over each other as these things tend to come forward. But I can tell you that's not by intent. In fact, quite the opposite. I would have much rather had some space to have that timing be a little bit differently. But I don't want it to overshadow what is the real reason why I wanted to take a moment, and that is to thank each and every one of you for your earnest, hard work, contribution, and leaning into what is, at least as far as I can tell, the largest grant we have ever received for a project from the federal government. That is nothing short of amazing. And it really comes from the work that this group has done and the leadership of all the individual partners, even that aren't all represented here. It is from all of that hard work that really allows us the opportunity to say $450 million grant award for reconnecting communities to do the right thing within a community that has long been watching government do the wrong thing. This is fantastic news. And so I wanted to congratulate each and every one of you. I wanted to thank you because it's not lost on me that we couldn't have done that without all of your efforts as well. And so I just wanted to take a moment of your agenda, provide that appreciation. I wanted to let you know how important that is to us and how excited we all are to continue this journey together as we go forward to say, how do we then bring the rest of that finance plan together? So I wonder, I don't know the format of the rest of the meeting, but I'll look to our facilitation team and say, is there room for a few questions, Ms. Warren, or should I bow out gracefully after the appreciation?
Yes, sir. I think there's an opportunity for a couple of questions. I do see a hand from our good friend, Mr. James Posey. Please unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Good, good. Thank you very much. Director Strickler, I'm again, like you and everybody else, very excited about the fact that we received this $450 million grant. But, I hate to be a naysayer at the beginning of this meeting, but the truth of the matter is there are a lot of people that I think are concerned that even though we get this big grant and this money ostensibly is going to come to our community, some of us feel that very little of that money will go into the hands of the Black community. Some of us are concerned that we've seen this movie before. I give you an example. When you guys sort of symbolize that dome at Dawson Park, which I live right down the street from, Dawson Park, that dome symbolizes that you all have invested into the Black community. But if you look behind the scenes and you follow the money, you'll find that a Hispanic group came in there and remodeled Dawson Park, and Black people were sitting on the sidelines playing dominoes, and we received very little economic benefit from the restructuring of Dawson Park. It's scary, to be quite honest with you, for this amount of money to come to our community. And, we use the HAAB and Black faces all over the place. And at the end of the day, Black people will receive very little benefit from this project. I would recommend that you all put in place a Truth and Reconciliation committee to look at every one of the dollars that come from as a result of this project and see if in fact we are maximizing the participation of African Americans, which you all are selling. Don't make no mistake about it. You're using Black people, you're using this community, and some of us feel like we're going to be played. And so I know that puts a negative spin on it, but I wanted to say that while you're on this call, so you will know the expectation is that we're trying to maximize these dollars to improve and grow our community. So I wanted you to be real clear about it. Those of us who have been around the horn a minute, we've seen this movie before. We don't expect it to come the way we've historically watched it play out. So thank you very much. I don't want to throw no water on the excitement and joy of the money coming here, but I know this. I know how we've been played before, and I'm going to be honest with you. I'm skeptical about how this money plays out in our community. Thank you.
Director?
Yeah, Mr. Posey, you mind if I respond just a little bit and ask a follow-up question for you?
Sure.
Okay. So while I certainly can't recognize all of the background, at least not from the perspective that you would bring, and you and I have had many conversations about how do we change the paradigm, right? How do we shift not just the expectation but the actual outcomes? I've always appreciated your candor, so I actually don't see this as throwing cold water. I see this as setting expectations. So I hear you and I understand. I would also offer that it's been a journey, and I totally understand that, and I appreciate that. And I know that we've got a committed team on showing up and doing things differently. I think we've started to show that, but I don't expect that to be enough, nor do I expect you to let down on your accountability for us. And so I completely concur that we have to continue to do better, and we have to show you that this time we need to fear other things, but not that. So I appreciate it. I appreciate the comments, and I really do thank you for mentioning it while I'm here, because that's a value for me to hear and for my team to hear how we respond.
So Director Strickler, you know, the $38 million that you all have allocated on the front end of this for the design is $38 million up front. You know as well as I do, there are very few Black people involved in this design technically, and the ability to capture some of that $38 million they're going to return back to our community. So one of the critical questions is what you do on the front end and how you all create opportunities for Black people is going to be a critical measurement as to whether or not you're going to really allocate the rest of $450 million to the benefit of our Black community. Meg and them, y'all got nice little cute dress and all that, but at the end of the day, until we see it in black and white, I'm not going to believe it until you all design a process in which we can talk about how we build capacity in our community. I'm just not going to believe you. I respect you. I respect what y'all have done so far, but I'll believe it when I see it.
Thank you, Mr. Posey.
That's fair. And all I'll ask is that you stay committed to us and keep talking with us then. How's that?
Thank you. I see a hand from
Thank you,
Mr.
sir.
Washington. Mr. John Washington, I see your hand, sir.
Hey, Director, how you doing today, big guy?
I'm
Usually
doing well. How about you, Mr. Washington?
I'm all right, big guy. Hey, usually I follow on the heels of James and not chime right in with him because sometimes perspective James shares I have in common with him. But this time I want to just take a second, man, and just say a little something. I remember when you first came, and I don't know if you remember, we met you just when they first hired you in the basement of Matt's church. And I asked you a question. And I asked you if you were a man of your word. I want you to know something, man. I do appreciate the work that you've been doing and the commitment that you've been maintaining. You know, and I've been watching very closely, being a part of the HAAB from its inception and, you know, on and on. And I also wanted to take the time, man, to recognize that even though this is a large amount of money, I was a part of the process that went about trying to get this money, writing the letter, spending times with the group. You know, I want to also put in a special kind of shout out for Tri Excellence and the work that they put in to this thing, and the NAACP. I mean, all of us were sitting around the table, actually taking bits and pieces and pulling it together and making sure the verbiage that you use wasn't the same as the last verbiage that you used, because we wanted it to sound a little bit more Blacker, you know, and I mean, it was just on and on. I mean, how we addressed some of the things that we were doing. So, you know, I do appreciate all the people that was in the room, the doctors and, you know, all of us that sat down and went through this process at the table, and then to get this victory. And because believe it or not, there were a lot of people that didn't believe it was possible. And we took the time to push forward and to believe that it was possible, that, you know, it's better than nothing, than not trying and letting it sit there. And so I think, you know, it brought us closer together on some things that we believe that collectively, I think that we can achieve some things that, you know, that address some of the things that James Posey was talking about, you know, and holding you accountable. But, you know, for me, it's real important that we recognize the flow of the dollar and how it actually gets down to raise and elevate the wealth of the people that exist in the community, you know, and that we're all stakeholders in this. You know, it's just not one sector or one organization or one thing. We're all, you know, stakeholders in this, and those organizations that serve it, I think, should also be able to yield some of these opportunities that this money would bring. So I'm going to hold you accountable to making sure that that money makes it down to the community level, to where, you know, organizations and companies that are face fronting these communities are being able to be upheld, be supported, and so that the common man also gets benefit from these opportunities. Appreciate you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I expect nothing less. And I want you to continue to hold me and us to account as we think about next steps. I also want you to know that one of the biggest priorities that I have, besides, or I shouldn't say besides, in addition to funding the base of our agency operations in 25, and I'm really pushing hard legislatively, this is the project that I'm carrying forward to finish out the finance plan for all the reasons that you just described, and frankly, for the ones heard from Mr. Posey. This is a priority for us. This is unfinished business, and I want this celebration to continue beyond what we have today and accomplish all of those things that you're talking about right now as well. So thank you. I do appreciate that you stayed with us on this journey and stayed with me personally on this journey, John. That means a lot.
Yeah, thank you.
Director, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I know you're just getting off a drive. Appreciate you and allowing us to speak into this and to hold you accountable. Thank you for the work, for taking the time to join us today.
Erica, thank you so much. And thank you to the whole group. I do think that at times we talk in numbers that are so big and so out of reach, or at least they feel like they're out of reach so many times. I just need to say that the work that you all did, and I mean collectively, we've had contributions from the city, we've had contributions from Metro, we've had strong contributions from ABT and HAAB, all coming together to say this is a priority for everyone. And this kind of moment is absolutely vital. And each of you deserves not just a congratulations and an appreciation, but a huge pat on the back, because it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen on its own. It happens because of people. And I really do appreciate it. We would not be sitting here as ODOT with the ability to even hold us to account without your work. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Director. We appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you for giving me time.
Indeed.
Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you. So that we can be conscious of all of your time, I'm going to jump back to Megan so that we can get to our breakout rooms for section 1. We have a lot of information. So Megan, with that, back to you.
Absolutely. And I just want to acknowledge actually one more individual that's in the space. We have Assistant Director Leah Horner here tonight from ODOT. She is joining us as she drives to the Oregon Transportation Commission meeting in Medford. But Leah, wanted to give you a moment to introduce yourself in recognition that I know that you'll be back in the future, touching base with the HAAB as well.
Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And I apologize profusely for being on the phone. I was not able to drive as quickly as the director, although I'm sure he drove very safely. But I just appreciate the space in this meeting. I am as Megan said, I'm the Assistant Director for Operations at the Oregon Department of Transportation, and I also am taking on the interim role of the Assistant Director for the Office of Equity and Civil Rights. So I very much appreciate the space in this meeting. I appreciate the conversation that has been had thus far. I've been listening in, and it feels a little awkward for me to be on the phone, but I very much look forward to engaging with all of you in the next meeting, and look forward to having some touch points in between. So I just appreciate the time and the space that is happening right now, and look forward to future conversations. So again, very much apologize for being in the car and how awkward this might feel. So, but I do appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you, Leah. All right. Recognizing that we want to move quickly, I'm going to just very quickly highlight on the next slide for us kind of where we are in the process. So I mentioned that tonight's meeting is focused on how do we set up our 30% design process for what we call the main construction package that is inclusive of the highway cover. And so using this image here on the screen, I think we're all familiar, at least with you know, how buildings are formed. So kind of using this as an example, and acknowledging kind of our design process in the transportation space. We focus a lot on, you know, the 0%. We're just starting. 30% design milestone is a significant one, kind of setting us up going forward. Another touch base at a 60% design level. And then obviously the 100% design is what is getting constructed. So we're focused tonight on informing that 30% design. So in this kind of design cycle, 0% is you have a really general idea of what you are going to build, you know, a building size or a shape, a general concept. At 30%, you start to get a better sense of really like what's the reality of kind of what's around the building, what's the footprint of the building, and starting to incorporate some of those rough elements. So in this example, you can see like, yeah, we think the door is going to be on the left side of the building. And we decided at 30%, maybe we'll go, you know, 3 stories instead of 2 stories. As you get to 60%, elements can definitely shift around. That door can shift closer to the corner, incorporating different, you know, windows and building wrapping. And it's really more detail is layered on to your design. So you can see that detail that's layered onto like the upper floors and the roof. And then as you get to final design, really that 100% design, you're making micro changes and the design is even more detailed. But the size and of the things and materials are all set. So just using this kind of as a grounding of where we are in the project life cycle and design cycle, and that we're still in that 30% for the highway cover. So you'll hear a lot tonight around kind of the structural components and the footprint, in recognition that we want to make sure as we set that up, we're creating opportunities for the community vision and what's going to go on top. But the conversation around what is that development and what's going to go on top will not happen until a future phase. So I emphasize that to note we have a lot of time to figure that out, and really appreciate the focus kind of on the upfront and 30% design component. So with that, we're going to now kind of zoom back out to the district, and I'd like to welcome our City of Portland partner, Rachel Hoy from Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, just to share some information as we zoom out and look at the broader districts that we are working within.
Thank you, Megan. Good evening, everyone. Again, Rachel Hoy, she, her pronouns, with the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. I'm really happy to be here with you this evening. I just wanted to give us an opportunity to take a look at this context map, just of the broader area, to think about where the future highway cover will be in proximity to some of the surrounding area. And the next slide, please. So just a little bit of a closer view. This just gives us a chance to think a little bit about a few of the assets and you know, some of the future things that I want to highlight on the map that are happening now. We have Albina 1, and just adjacent to that, Analog. These will bring affordable housing and some market rate housing to the area just adjacent to the future highway cover. Just to the north, we have the Williams and Russell project, which will offer affordable housing and home ownership opportunities and commercial uses. And there are also future redevelopment opportunities that we know of at the Dr. Matthew Prophet site, currently the PPS headquarters, Portland Public School headquarters. And then there are opportunities along the waterfront for future waterfront activation and redevelopment. So all of this is in close proximity to this to the future highway cover. And it's I think a good idea for us to kind of zoom in and zoom out as we're talking through this conversation about priorities this evening. And then some parallel work that's going to be kicking off in the coming months that I would like to just make you all aware of, and Megan had made mention of, the Reconnecting Communities Planning Grant that's going to be getting started in the coming months. And that's a project that was awarded to the Bureau of Transportation and Albina Vision Trust, our community partner, and Bureau of Planning and Sustainability and Prosper Portland. So this project will offer an opportunity to take a closer look at how we will be able to physically integrate the highway cover from a community development perspective, and also advance the development options for a Broadway Main Street project, and also to identify some key areas for development opportunities and infrastructure improvements that will be needed to restitch the new highway cover into the Lower Albina neighborhood. So when I see we have a couple hands here, so I don't know how you would like to do this, Erica, but this is just, again, a context that we can use this map at different points this evening. If when we're in our breakout rooms, if people would like to see this again, it'll be available.
I see their hands. If we can move forward, you all just give me a moment and I'll make sure to get to you.
And I just was gonna wrap up here because I wanted to allow Megan to say a few words about, as we enter in this evening, to talk about the community priorities for the highway cover and some of the adjacent area. We'll want to think about where the community priorities can be achieved. And we have a foundation of priorities that we've referred to at past meetings with the HAAB members. And Megan was going to provide us with just a little bit of background on where the history of those priorities that we'll just use as a foundation, and hopefully this evening refine and enhance those.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel. Megan?
Thanks, Rachel. And yeah, on the next slide, just want to highlight the priorities that we have heard to date. So the focus around community health, community wealth, and community cohesion. Really, those themes emerged from the independent highway cover assessment process over the course of 2020 and 2021, where our kind of independent consultant team helped us get to the right project that we have today with that longer, stronger highway cover. And this is what we heard from the community engagement during that process. And tonight, we'll have breakout rooms that kind of focus on these as well. So I'm going to ask our breakout room leaders if you would have these priorities at the ready to kind of pull up on screen for those breakout conversations. I'll note that these, again, emerged from the independent cover assessment process, and also will continue to have conversations with our Historic Albina Advisory Board to ensure that these are the right priorities that we should be moving forward. They are not listed in any order of priority. This was just kind of a snapshot of the different priorities and themes that emerged through that process. So consider this a start from prior community conversations, and very excited to hear the team's feedback on these priorities and if we need to make any refinements. So with that, Erica, I'll go back to you.
Indeed. Can we go to the next slide? So community wealth, community health, community cohesion. So I'm going to share an opportunity. I do see your hands. I'm going to jump into those quickly. So I'm going to explain this. I'll go to your hands and we'll come back. So again, as Megan mentioned, the independent cover assessment process led us to a list of community priorities, and we are going to be talking about them in our breakout. And so you will see, again, a Mentimeter question as we dive in regards to the priorities. Black Community Development Corporation, a Black CDC, and a Black Controlled Land Trust. Black food sovereignties and markets, affordable rental and home ownership and ownership business spaces, culturally appropriate, affordable childcare. Culturally appropriate health and wellness, career training and advancement, permanently affordable rental ownership and housing, accessible outdoor community gathering space, etc. You all can utilize the Mentimeter at this time. Of the 10 priorities listed, which would you be excited to work on as a passion project if you were given the opportunity? If HAAB members and our guests would utilize the Mentimeter, and you can see our results populate in real time on the screen. All of these fitting within community wealth, community health, and community cohesion. So the Mentimeter link is in the chat for HAAB members and our invited guests today. If you would, out of those priorities, tell us what would excite you to jump into, what things would you be passionate about working on? And we're going to dive deeper as we head into the breakout space. I'm going to go to Estelle first for your question or comment.
I just need a little clarity, I guess.
Yes, ma'am.
So my expectation was that this was kind of going to be more of a leadership thing instead of like us giving reflections or things to guide or things like that. I thought at this stage would be the CDC sitting on here telling the city, not giving guidelines and what we think and it's shaped by, but saying, hey, this is what we want, do this, and not saying what we've already said. And as you guys just pointed out in the slides, it kind of seems a little bit backwards because we've already done this. We've already told them. And the expectation is that we were going to have a little bit more of a voice at this point and a firm voice that we fought to have. And it kind of seems what I have been very concerned about what's happening as the entrance of the city in this project taking over, and we're going to be stepped down to essentially a think tank rather than us being the leadership. This is kind of what usually happens to the community in these projects. And so we have to push back and say, no, this is not what's going to happen this time. We're going to be telling you what to do. We want to be in a leadership position. We want to be given power in this situation. You know, we've already been a resource for you at this point. And we don't want to be that. We want to be in a position to tell you, and then you go from there. So I guess I need a little bit of clarity.
Indeed. So what I will share, and I'll let others respond if necessary, is that we just haven't got to that stage yet. At this time, we are moving in the schedule of the project. We are doing our best to get to 30% design. And so this meeting today is to help the technical team to be able to move forward and do the work of the 30% design. And we have a parallel track, if you will, if that makes sense, with the city partners, with Albina Vision Trust, with the Historic Albina Advisory Board, as we begin to dive into what land development looks like, what ownership looks like, what governance looks like, et cetera, et cetera. So there are two tracks, if you will, that are happening at the same time. This meeting happens to be focused on helping the technical design team get to the 30%. And so because HAAB has often asked us to broaden our engagement, that was our attempt as we move forward. and helping ODOT move on their side of the track. But there will be plenty of opportunity for us to dive into conversations around governance, et cetera, and moving the needle forward. So I hope that is helpful in clarifying why we are here where we are. I think we just needed to give context to make sure we're all functioning from the same book. And yes, it is a repeat for you and all of the time that you've invested here. We are broadening to make sure that our work that we've done is in line and that other community members are hearing and seeing, and that we're being thoughtful and intentional around being transparent about the work we're doing. I see hands from Mr. Washington, and then I'll go to Mr. Posey and to Kimberly Horner after that.
I pass to Posey.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Posey?
Yeah, I apologize because I have to go to another meeting. I have NAACP executive committee meeting here right at 6 o'clock, but I want to make sure that the folk who are on this call really have a full context about this I-5 project, for them to be aware of the history in which there are those of us who've been working on this project almost 4 years and trying to pull this thing online, et cetera, et cetera. And that in the midst, well, we thought we were at a point where this money was going to come into our community. The rug was pulled from under us by ODOT and all the folk who were trying to promote this project. The money went to other projects around the state. When they found out money was coming to the Black community, somehow the money disappeared. That's the only way I can describe it. I just want to make sure people understand that even though we got this $450 million, the money is not totally secure at this point for completing the project. And so I want to be real clear from my perspective is that there are folk who have already put in a lot of work for this project. And I didn't see on the front end of the proposals that were listed that those folk would be guaranteed a more or less front seat at the front of this project, whichever money that plays out. I want to make sure you understand we need to pay it forward to the folk who've already invested in this project. That's number one. Secondly, it's important for me and for all the other folk on this project to understand that this project is being sold on the back of Black people. Again, if anybody's looking at this project, you all understand that Black people are the highest unemployed, we're the highest incarcerated. All of the demographics about Black people is in the toilet. And so when I look at your those objectives, the land trust and all those other laudable things, it leaves me short in thinking, where are the jobs? Where are the Black businesses? Where do we build economic capacity in our community? Those are the items that I came on this project for 3 or 4 years ago to build economic capacity for the Black community. And I don't see them expressed in any real clarity on this project on the front end. So it's concerning for me, after being on this for 4 or 5 years, not to have that explicit on the front end of this project and the work we have going forward. I know y'all don't want to answer all that in one voice, but again, I'm skeptical about the fact that the Black community is going to get played again, and I don't want to see that. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Posey, for your comments. I don't have a rebuttal to that, except for that's why we need your input. Those 10 community priorities came directly from Black folks in this community. And so we are expanding the conversation tonight to make sure that other Black folks can add their priorities and that we can synergize those together. So thank you for always speaking your truth and being authentic. Kimberly, thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'm Kimberly Horner. I'm the Executive Director for the Portland Community Reinvestment Initiatives. We go by the acronym PCRI. For those of you who don't know our organization or haven't yet had an opportunity to meet me, We are the largest Black-led affordable housing nonprofits in Northeast Portland. I also want to share with everyone that I'm also on the NAACP's executive committee, where I serve in a function to support affordable housing. I do too have concerns about making sure that when this development does occur, that there are well-paying jobs, good paying jobs that go to the Black community as part of the development. We've had an opportunity as a nonprofit to develop a lot of meaningful projects in Northeast Portland. We are also that organization that's serving to develop Williams and Russell, the multifamily complexes. We also own the Urban League building, and we own a number of properties in Northeast Portland. So I would very much encourage all those who are involved in the development here to make sure that we are looking at housing as a priority and economic development as a very, very strong priority as well. In order to make sure that people are meaningfully housed, they have to have good, well-paying, decent jobs. So congratulations on receiving the $450 million. And I would like to offer additional staff of mine to help recognize some of the housing needs that need to go on along with this funding, and also the job creation that needs to be created out of this as well. So thank you for your time.
Indeed, thank you. And before we move forward, with our next piece is moving into the breakout space to talk about these specific things and for you all to add to that list of priorities. And so we want to spend our time constructively. We're going to spend just a moment in some breakout rooms to talk about what is missing on those lists and the things that we'd like to see and get your input on those. So thank you, Kimberly, for that. Thank you for the offer of your staff and being willing to help us get this work done. So with that, I will let you know there will be a facilitator in each of the breakout rooms. Myself, Dr. Holt, Shannon Singleton will also be facilitating. There will be a person from our design team. There'll be a person who will be taking notes, as well as representatives from the city and the design team and ODOT. And yes, so what I think, because we're just a bit behind, if we could take 3 minutes and take a break now, and then come back as we've been in the meeting space for about an hour and a half. Can we take just a few moments to take a brief break and come back in a couple of moments to get into our breakout rooms? So let's say, I'm going to be odd. Okay, so 5:42. So just before, that'll give you 4 minutes to refresh your coffee, your water. Kimberly, I see that you have to leave the meeting space. This will not be the last time that we are able to engage with you. Mr. Modica, did you have something briefly?
I did. So for all of us that are eating all the frosting off the cake, I think it's wonderful, and we've all got a sugar high on the 475. But you know, there's one thing I noticed just looking at the different schedules and so forth. It seems as though there are fewer meetings scheduled for the HAAB and our interaction with ODOT and other signatures on all of this than we've had before. And I would think that at this point, now that there's been announcement of monies awarded, that it might even be more appropriate to have more meeting time so we don't lose sight of the ultimate goals, right, of what we really want to accomplish. I mean, just saying, hey, we got the money and it's for 30% design, it doesn't move me, because we were in the space of, hey, we have really no money for design and we're going to ask for this money and it's only going to get us to 30% design. Well, so now the money's there. And I didn't want to poke at Director Strickler or Ms. Channel or Ms. Hoy, but those of us who have been described as not having the expertise, education, or wherewithal, I think we then need to say, then provide us the clarity so that we do have the wherewithal, right? Because I don't know who's signing off on that, right? But in this room, in this HAAB room, we have PhDs, we have accountants, we have lawyers, we have business owners, we have community development people, community capacity building people. And so, you know, yeah, it's been a cohort, and it's great. We're all clapping and patting each other on the back, but that's not enough. We need more focus. We need more information so that we can keep our eye on the ball. Because as Mr. Posey said, you know, that's lived experience. You know, yeah, the money's under this cup and then it disappears. And projects have been canceled before. I've been around long enough to see the Mount Hood Freeway canceled, right? Which in some estimations would have done more than our light rail system accomplishes. Just looking at ridership and all the other issues that have come along with it. Yeah, there's been housing along the light rail alignments, but there's also other issues that have not been tended to. So that, you know, that's my comment / question, and don't want to take away from the break time.
No worries. Can we resume at 5:45? I know we're going to lose some folks at 6 o'clock. So if you all, if you need to, you can turn off your video and use the restroom or grab a drink, and we will join back at 5:45.
I had to take my jacket off.
It is warm and I'm still seeing the sun.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing.
Yes.
And beautiful.
So as folks are returning to the main room, we are going to resume in our breakout rooms. And so I am going to ask our technical team to send us to those virtual special magic rooms. You will have a technical person in the room just to help us in case someone gets left behind. For the public, you will not be in the breakout rooms, but there will be a report out of our conversation as we return into the main meeting space. So with that, Ms. Natalie, if you could help with sending us into our virtual space, we would appreciate it.
Absolutely. Will we be going for 15 minutes this time? Okay, great, excellent. I will send a warning and so you are aware that we will be coming back. Please go ahead and click the prompt to join your breakout room and we'll see you when you're done.
Uh-oh, sorry. Oh, okay, my bad.
Thank you as all of you all are joining us back in the main virtual space. I appreciate you all. Thank you. Thank you. As we're joining back into the main space, thank you for leaning into the conversation. We had a great conversation in our room. I want to remind you all that notes were taken in each of the breakout rooms. We will again be breaking out in part 3, but we are going to invite our note takers to give a report out from our breakout session. So why don't we start I don't know if the breakout rooms are numbered, but let's start in the breakout room. Dr. Holt, I'm not sure who is your note taker and report out person. Is it you, Megan?
It is.
Go
Hey,
ahead, Megan.
everyone. My name is Megan Scornia. I'm with Nelson Nygaard on the project team. I can report back about the priorities discussed in breakout room 3. So 4 big priorities came to light. The first one is dealing with the youth situation, making sure that there are free, enclosed, flexible spaces for youth to congregate. Common term is third places. Second priority that we discussed was the need for more emphasis on small business, and not just thinking about individual small businesses, what uses do we want, but really thinking about the business ecosystem and making sure that what businesses need to survive and thrive and support each other are all co-located in the project area. The third priority is to continue to push restorative justice principles. So noting that we're happy about this funding, let's take a moment to celebrate, but really keep that tied to restorative justice principles as we move throughout this project. And the fourth priority we came up with was education, just really making sure that we are furthering the education and supporting all sorts of students in the project area.
Thank you for that.
Let me just add specifically Black education. Specifically for that. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it. The breakout sessions were also recorded, and so we'll be able to capture all of your conversation. Let's shift to breakout room 2, where Shannon was facilitating our report out from breakout room 2.
Hi, Erica. This is John Maloney. I'm with the owner rep team, and I'll go ahead and give the feedback, the things we talked about in breakout room 2. I'm going to run through these really quickly. We covered a lot of ground and talked about a lot of things. A lot of great things were mentioned. Starting with making sure that the project takes into consider the greater context of what's happening in the area, not just on the highway covers. Don't lose sight of what other projects are doing. Remember that this project did start as a transportation project, and those connections are very important for the fabric of the community. Be proactive on the livability and health of the area, including considerations for ventilation, construction materials, and things of that nature, especially with the goal of bringing the Black community back to this area. Let's see. Consider kind of the needs of the moment versus the needs of the future, and try to make sure we're keeping that in context, because those things are sometimes different. Making sure we don't create negative impacts to the community or inhibit surrounding opportunities that could be off cover. Minimize harm during this project. Let's see, I think there's a lot of comments about, early focus on, Black businesses, especially during the delivery phase and construction phase. Let's see. We did get, general feedback that the priorities did seem to be, the priorities that were listed did seem to be in alignment with the community. It's important that the highway covers should be supportive of future needs. Education should be considered in the list of priorities. I think that was something Megan also mentioned. And then community safety was an important thing, is if we can design something and develop something that is safe for the Black community, that it will, a lot of these other goals can be achieved. And I think that was it. Thank you, Erica.
That was very thorough. Thank you very much. We appreciate your group. And
Erica, I'm sorry. If I could, I would add just one more thing. That was encouragement for ODOT to take away that their other tables should look this diverse. This is a subset of their full budget. And so how are we really looking to bring in Black and Brown community into conversations across transportation projects?
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Indeed. JT, I will go to you. Did you want to add one more thing to this discussion?
Yeah, I'll be lightning quick.
Yes.
I just wanted to say that, inherent in this idea of minimizing harm, I actually think the most constructive way we could think about it would be maximizing benefit for community. And to use a sports analogy, it's the difference between playing not to lose and playing to win. I think we got to play to win here for generational well-being of Black families, Black children, and Black communities writ large.
That's so good. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Hart, if you will report out for breakout room 1, excuse me.
Will do, Erica. We had a healthy discussion in our group, came up with a variety of topics. I think what I came away with is the key is wealth is foundational. The idea of an economic engine that basically generates good paying jobs, well-paying jobs, keep people employed with opportunities for to participate in many ways. I think we also need to kind of establish metrics to make sure we are setting goals and having some metrics, and then making sure that this project is accountable to those. And one of those things may be through things such as a CBA, Community Benefits Agreement. In order to do the metrics, we need other organizations aside from AVT because they'll be busy. And these other entities will be ones that basically make sure ODOT is accountable for the things that we're talking about with these metrics. I think the other concern was about contracting goals, making sure we've got contracting goals that work for Black businesses, both for creating employment opportunities, but also the opportunities for new businesses to be emerging during this time. ODOT's got an aggressive diversity policy that they're going to employ on this project, which Megan shared with us. The ideas of having the idea of succession, of basically making sure we've got something that goes on for a period of time as some folks step away from the table, other ones enter, some way to make sure that we can keep this project accountable to the metrics that we're talking about, and making sure we've got involvement from the Black community and participation in how this is all going to be governed. I think a couple things that we talked that showed up on the list that were, I think, priorities were the Black Cultural Center was something that was a priority, as well as the Career Training and Advancement Center. So some form of education that basically empowers folks and gives them the opportunity to participate and create some generational wealth for them and for future generations. I think that covered it. I may have missed something, but feel free if I did.
You did an excellent job. You did an excellent job. Thank you. We appreciate you. This will not be the last opportunity. We are working through. These are building blocks towards realizing what the community priority is. There are so many things that so much creativity, insight from all of you. So thank you for leaning into the conversation. We are about 30 minutes behind, and I know that we had a lot of information. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, John Wolf. I'm going to skip over, if we had a mentee there, and dive into the technical considerations for the highway cover and ask you where you feel, in your professional opinion, we might be able to shift. We won't be going into breakout rooms for this section. So with that, to John Wolf.
Thank you, Ms. Erica. John Wolf with the design team, and I've been leading a lot of the technical assessment and analysis for the highway cover. So first off, I have to indicate that I appreciate these opportunities to share this information with the HAAB, and now the opportunity for the invited guests. A lot of this content is going to be look familiar because it's very similar to the material we shared at some of our HAAB updates. And really the emphasis is to review some of the due diligence work we've done investigating some of the considerations for development on the cover and some of the things we have to consider as we go into design. So I'll be sharing a few slides that highlight some of those key considerations that we've discovered. So next slide. Really, we want to recap a couple of our working assumptions. First being the project site area that we're focused on, and the potential parcels as we've described them, or the possible sites or areas that our project has direct influence over. So we've been talking about the highway cover and the important role that that's going to play in reconnecting this portion of Lower Albina, both with the transportation network and streets that will reconnect and cross I-5, but also the new spaces that are going to be created both on the highway cover and adjacent to the highway cover. We've already spoken a bit to the relocation of the southbound exit ramp and how that's going to change some of the function of that street network. And so that's something we're continuing to understand and investigate. And what we're learning is we really have a range of potential and possibilities for both on and off cover opportunities. So this map or figure is really what we have spent the majority of our time considering and evaluating and trying to understand how different uses and functions could impact that base design and the base structure, particularly the highway cover, as we move into the early stages of our design. Next slide. So I'm going to touch on a few of these key considerations that we've identified and started to daylight in terms of some of the considerations, both that we need to understand from the transportation system, but also some of these considerations for these long-term uses, and how we can design this table as we've spoken to it in the past, designing a table that's flexible to accommodate these uses and understanding some of these considerations that might affect our design. And so within these considerations, I'll be reviewing some of the highway cover capacity and going over some of the work we've done in that area to understand how that changes across the highway cover. We're going to discuss some cover offsets. We're going to review a little bit of bridge joints and how that affects some of those offsets, some geotechnical considerations, and then ultimately utilities and access. And so we identified this list really as key areas of study to investigate early, so we understand the influence and impact on potential uses above. Next slide. As we speak to cover capacity, this is something we've reported back a few times now, but what we've continued to find is that the area on the northern portion of the highway cover, and that area in light blue on this map, it's an area where we have less capacity on the cover itself. And in part, that's a lot to do with what's going on beneath the cover and where we can create supports that would go up and support these larger spans as it crosses the freeway. In the central portion of the highway cover, we have areas for additional supports beneath, and our next slide is going to show this in a little more detail, but we have a greater capacity through the central portion of the highway cover for greater development intensity or larger scale buildings. And then as we get to the far southern end, the bridge framing and the bridge layout changes again in that area, and we again have a lower capacity in that portion of the cover. So the next slide really starts to illustrate some of the why that is the case. And so I'd first draw your attention to the bold yellow lines or the heavy yellow lines, which indicate locations through the cover where there's supports beneath the cover, creating shorter spans for our bridge. And so again, on that northern portion of the cover, we have wider spans, and we also have some transitions to the bridge girders or the bridge beams. If you think of these like floor joists, these are transitioning to warp from girders that run in parallel to the streets and potential developments, and then transition back to meet the edges of the cover. And so in that northern portion, our capacity evaluation has shown that that's going to be a more difficult area for buildings and vertical development, likely limited to about 1 story of a light frame structure. As you look at the middle portion or the orange portion of this figure, this is the area where we have a more robust structure with a larger capacity because of both the shorter spans and also the alignment or orientation of those bridge girders, those floor beams to the highway cover. And we were intentional through the investigation that we've done and the feedback we've received to create as functional of a space as possible above. And so we were intentional with the orientation of the framing of the structure. And so you could see these areas of the cover transition and follow the street grid, because we're really trying to think of how it's going to function and fit with the form above versus thinking of it in terms of the orientation of the freeway below. And then as you get to the far south end of the highway cover, again, there's another transition within the structure itself where the girders have to space out and transition back to the edge of the cover and again, lose a little bit of that capacity. So this is a little bit of the why behind some of the findings from a capacity perspective. Next slide, if you will. So these next several slides are going to speak to cover offsets. And as we talk about those, we were really looking to understand what are some of the limitations, potential limitations for placement or consideration or placement of buildings on and throughout the highway cover, and how might that influence the potential developability of these various sites. And so really just trying to understand what are some factors that are going to influence that building placement. And so we've identified a handful of on-cover setbacks that I'll go into more detail describing, and then several off-cover setbacks that influence to building placement beside the cover, directly affected to the design of the cover itself. So I'm going to go through each of these individual offsets through the next set of slides. So if we go to the next slide. First, I'll describe is the offset to the free edge. And so this is the freeway exposed free edge of the highway cover. There's a need for buildings to be set in from that edge. That's in part to provide access and maintenance to the highway cover edges that ODOT will need to continue to have access to, as well as provide some separation and a safe delineation of space between the highway cover and the freeway below. And so our initial recommendation of that free edge is a minimum of 24 feet from the cover edge to any potential vertical building. Next slide. Our bridge joints are an important consideration as we move forward. So the bridge itself, to function properly and to consider the expansion and contraction and movement that is natural to a bridge, we have to have joints throughout this structure. And so our team has spent a lot of time investigating the ideal placement for some of those joints to factor into some of these considerations. But related to the joint offset itself, it's being influenced a lot by the loads that it would be supporting. And so one of our general assumptions for a potential building on the cover is that it would be trying to distribute its loads to as many bridge girders as it could reasonably do in order to get a greater capacity or use above. And so in order for those loads to get distributed across the girders, those girders have to work as as a team in supporting the loads, and therefore, when you get to these bridge joints, there's going to have to be a natural setback to the building so that you can distribute that load across multiple girders. And for that reason, this offset is a variable offset depending on the size and scale of the building that would be considered. But generally, some of the initial assumptions are shown by these blue bars or blue lines highlighting potential setbacks to bridge joints. Next slide. Geotechnical offsets are really related to how foundations of things beside the cover will influence or interact with the cover itself. And so we've identified the need for a geotechnical setback from any vertical loads from a building relative to the highway cover. And those areas of these potential geotechnical setbacks are shown with this dark orange highlighted area shown on your map. That is also a variable that changes depending on the foundation of the building and how it may interact with the bridge itself. So there's some ways that those buildings could be designed on deeper foundations or with a more robust footing to help minimize the offset to the highway cover. Next slide. Utilities and service access. So our team has investigated what would it take to accommodate access for utilities and services to these various sites. Are there any locations where services may not be physically feasible or where you may need to reserve some space to accommodate that? And through that work, we've identified the west edge of the highway cover as a logical location for a utility setback, where various services for water, sewer, or other connections can be made and accommodated across the cover. Next slide. We're really close to the summary. So just summarizing what we've learned is that development on the cover is complicated. I don't think that would be news to anyone in this room, but it is possible within the constraints and considerations we've explored. Development off cover has more flexibility in size, scale, and complexity than the development on cover. As I highlighted, the building scale or capacity ranges as you go through different portions of the cover, with the greatest capacity towards the central part of the highway cover. The last bullet here is speaking to land on the cover is assumed to remain under ODOT ownership, but has the opportunity for lease or governance agreements to create that long-term use and development potential. And then one more slide summarizing kind of our findings from this due diligence is the building placement is going to need to consider offsets, several of which I spoke through today. But as we've explored that, while these considerations have a level of complexity, they do appear to present feasible, functional, and attractive developable sites as we move forward. And our next module, depending on how much time we have for it, is going to explore a little bit of some of the precedents and possibilities. So I would just close in that while I've highlighted some of these considerations and constraints, we've been looking at possibilities and precedents that can fit with these considerations that we've reviewed today, and really see a lot of potential for this moving forward.
John, thank you so much. To be considerate of time, if you would pull up the Mentimeter question, I would like, if you would, to click on the link in the chat. If there are questions about things that you've heard, thoughts that you have about the technical components of the highway cover and the considerations, if you would just type those in, those will be captured for our team. If you have an opportunity, you can also email them to me. But right now, the Menti link is there. If you have questions or comments in regards to what you just heard in part 2 about the technical considerations, you can enter them into the Mentimeter now. And then we will quickly shift so that we can get into some more discussion and precedents and possibilities. So we'll take these questions and have an opportunity to come back to the technical team and provide some updates and input and do our best to answer some of your questions. We won't take that time at this time, but if you would type in your questions, again, please, and also feel free to send me emails and we will make sure that the technical team has those and we can do our best to report back to you what we've heard. I'll give just a few more minutes if there are folks who were typing. With that, I'd love to shift to my colleague James, who will talk with us about precedents and possibilities, and Nicholas as well from BPS.
Thank you, Erica. I'm James. I'm with the design team. You just heard a lot about the technical things, and I want to pivot us to a vision and thinking about the place that we're trying to create. So the next slide. We're really in the early days of this. Yes, the project has been going for a long, long time, but when it comes to considering what could happen on the covers and where precisely it might go, we're really at the beginning stages. And so we wanted to share just an initial observation or two about this place to get you thinking about the possibilities and where can the things that we want to achieve happen in this specific place, on these specific parcels and in these specific blocks. So the diagram that we're showing here is really, really simple, and it's drawing your attention to two key factors. One, in orange and at the sort of crossroads of Broadway and Williams is going to be the most urban and active part of the site that gets created. It is where we have both the civic address of Williams and a street that's got historic importance, as well as Broadway. It's where we're going to have the most eyes on the street and people traveling to and from in various modes. We've got transit with the number 4 and the streetcar. We have the general traveling public to and fro. It's close to the event venues and the historic buildings that are there. In distinction to that, there is a quieter part of this rendered here in purple, which is closer to the existing fabric of the neighborhood. It is related to Hancock Street, which might serve as a really important connection down into Lower Albina and the vision that might come to fruition on the Prophet site. And so we wanted to put that in your thinking about there are multiple kinds of places that we can create that will be created here, and it might suggest which activities go where as we start to ideate and think about what's next. So in order to keep and get the juices flowing, I'm going to turn it to Nicholas Starn from the City of Portland, who's going to talk quickly about some precedents, projects that have happened either in Portland or elsewhere that are achieving the things that this community has said they want to achieve. And it's good for us to be thinking about them and how they might fit in this place. So next slide.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nicholas Starn with the City of Portland Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. Good evening. As James mentioned, we want to share with you some example developments or precedent studies that we've looked at. The team has looked both near and far for example developments and land use programs that both align with the community priorities as we understand them to date, and also are of a scale and an extent that they would work on the cover opportunity sites and adjacent parcels that John described a little earlier. And so I'm just going to quickly run through a few of these. We have a larger library of them. We continue to build that library and are going to have discussions with you in a few minutes about how we can sort of expand that group of example developments and fill out our library, so to speak. But I want to just emphasize before I get into it that we're not proposing these as specific developments or push the project or the group in any one direction, but rather we're providing these examples that will hopefully spark your imagination and kind of seed the conversations that we hope to have in the breakout groups. So just moving right along in the interest of time, the first one is Vanport Square, which I'm sure all of you are familiar with, a local example with commercial condominiums for small minority and women-owned businesses built by local Black developers with a sort of a unique commercial ownership model, a good example of sort of a wealth creation precedent. Next slide, please. This next example is also a Portland example, the Fruit and Flower Child Development Center. It's interesting to look at because in addition to being sort of a nonprofit community serving use, childcare, it also shows some site creativity. So you'll notice that it's a sort of a small footprint building on an irregularly shaped lot. That should be familiar to you the more you study the covers, and some of the sites are of a sort of a irregular shape. So this is a kind of a good example of a small development that fits on an irregular shaped lot and has sort of adjoining open spaces that sort of complement the main use. Next slide, please. This is Sherman Phoenix, an inspiring example from the Milwaukee area. It's a small mall or a kind of marketplace for businesses of color, places to eat and shop and get services. And it hosts cultural events and has an entrepreneurship academy that sort of helps foster the next generation of small businesses. It's become a real sort of economic and capacity building asset for the Black community in Milwaukee. Next slide, thank you. This is Pop Courts in Austin, Texas. This was a small vacant lot that was transformed into a place for activity and gathering and commerce. It's a flexible space, allows changing programming over time, things to quote unquote pop up and transform over time. And we like this example because it shows a kind of multi-use open space that could be on a small footprint that could be incorporated in this project and open to the public, like on opening day, when the day that the cover opens. Please. And then finally, back to Portland, this is the Louisa Flowers 12-story, 250 unit affordable housing project. I think it's one of the biggest in the city, nearby in the Lloyd District, built by a certified minority-owned general contractor. And it's just a good example of a larger scale mixed-use residential development that would work on parcels adjacent to the covers or nearby in the lower Albina area. So that's what I have.
Yeah.
I think it's back to you, James.
Yep. We are excited to hear from you. That's where we're headed. We're going to go into another breakout group. I want to combine what Erica began us with around passion projects and say that the precedents we just shared with you and many more things are possible here. We've actually looked at those buildings and put them on these sites to say these things can fit. The kinds of uses that the community seeks can fit on these parcels, whether it is adjacent to the covers or on the covers themselves. And so it's exciting. And we want to get into that in our breakout groups.
Awesome. Thank you, James. Thank you, Nicholas. I'm excited to hear. We are going to take our 15 minutes and dive into our breakout room. So you will be directed to enter the breakout room, and we'll have an opportunity again with representatives from all of the project team, city partners, as well as HAAB and guests. There will be a note taker, and we will come back and report out in just a moment. All right. Welcome back into the main space. We almost did it. We're getting close to our time. We had some wonderful discussions, so I'm going to ask if our note taker from breakout room number 3 would share with the group part of your discussion. Megan.
Yeah, hey everyone. So we started kind of high level and a little bit technical. We talked a bit about earthquake readiness in relation to the construction of the covers. We also talked about advanced design and technology, technology that we might not even know about yet because this is a big and long project. So that was pretty cool to think about. We also talked a little bit about how we'll decide how big the buildings can be, how wide they can be, how far apart they might be from each other. And those are all great questions and things that we'll be working on in the coming months and years. We talked a little bit about land ownership, who owns the covers, that's ODOT, who owns the buildings themselves, who owns the land. The short answer is that is a big topic of things called governance that we'll be working on again over the coming months and years. So when you hear governance, that's all kind of wrapped up in that. And then finally, we wrapped it up talking a little bit about the concept of community, and especially as it relates to mental health, and looking at social welfare and, kind of a larger question that this project, how will this project address that throughout its process? And that's all.
Well done.
Very well done. That's a lot. Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
John Maloney, if you'll report out for the next group, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Erica. Let's see, covered a lot of ground again. We started with making sure that the project is kind of being contextual around what fits in this development space, size of building, use, and really around available funding, and reflecting on kind of what was done and is being done with the Williams-Russell project as an example. Some of the goals and things that are being done there are a result of the available funding. So making sure we're considering that as we advance toward a use on the covers here. Considering options that might coincide with areas around stadiums or event centers or entertainment centers was also discussed. Albina 1 was a good example that was mentioned. Making sure that we're considering options and developments that have occurred, in recent times. Post-COVID development changes a lot. The criteria and economics change a lot. So making sure we're using recent examples was mentioned. Let's see. In recognizing that development is likely going to be dictated around the governance and the actual developer that's involved. Let's see, other things mentioned, being creative given the limitations of the cover. Building height might be a limitation, and trying to be creative about how to use that space given that. There was a good discussion around, needing landmarks rooted in Black history in the historic area. The opportunity for this to be a gateway to not just the entertainment district, but the community itself. Need for architectural elements, employing Afrocentric design aesthetics into this place was important. There isn't, a really big interest in art and potentially, Black statues, representations, murals, incorporating youth and youth business into the area. Let's see. I think that was a lot of it. And I think one of the other main things was expectations. Making sure we're being very specific about expectations, asking open-ended questions about wants can be misleading and can affect trust as when things aren't delivered. So making sure we're being very purposeful about that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Shannon, did I miss anything?
Well, hearing none, I'm going to try to get us through because we have a few next steps. Bill, if you'll give a quick overview of breakout room 1.
Will do, Erica. I think one of the key things that came up was making sure we create a space that's respectful of the community, and that it has the it's an attractive space that basically supports success and not failures. We have had a lot of, I mean, there's a lot of times things happen, but things just don't work out, and sometimes the challenges are very difficult. And we want to create something that is built for success, not failure, making sure it's got all the components to it. I think the other thing that community needs, such as, for example, potentially a fresh from the food side, food collaborative, the idea of a marketplace, some form of farm to table concept where the idea of fresh food, employment that could happen on a daily basis that the community needs could occur on the site. The idea of possibly a community courts, it's like the idea of the pop courts, something that happened down in Crenshaw, not only to serve as open space, but also we want to create a space for youth to be comfortable in many different things that youth are involved in, that they've got spaces and places to go to that they feel comfortable with. And then there were lots of opportunities about things mentioned, such as Black-owned businesses, potential idea of a music venue place up in Seattle where youth go and listen to music and different types of music. The Portland Opportunity Center, some sort of a community benefit center that the community can use. A private venture out in Washington, D.C. called the Spice Suite, where an African-American owner basically had several challenges, but then rose up and basically defeated those challenges and created a space and actually fostered more development from what she was doing as a leader. And the idea of maybe a food incubator, possibly somehow that the community can use in some way if we have housing or if we don't, but some way, a place for the community to kind of deal with food and work with food. And maybe the idea of a Black-owned dispensary, the other idea of a Black-owned business in the cannabis industry that might occur on the site. So a bookstore, yeah, I think that was pretty much it.
Thank you. Thank you for everyone who leaned into those conversations. We are just at the precipice, right? We have so much work to do, but we're on a parallel process to ODOT designing this landscape, this plate, setting the table for the community to begin to realize this place that our young people. Thank you to all of you for participating. I'm going to shift quickly to Megan Channel again, who can share just some brief next steps, some really important updates. So if you can just hang with us for just a few moments, I would appreciate just a few more moments of your time. Megan?
Yeah, absolutely. There's one next step that I want to make sure everyone is aware of. So on Thursday this week, we will be presenting in front of the Oregon Transportation Commission. We'll be celebrating, again, the contributions from this group relative to the $450 million grant award, the completion of the environmental review, and then we'll also be carrying forward for the Commission's consideration a resolution that would be in partnership with Albina Vision Trust, really to explore kind of the future opportunities related to the highway cover governance and kind of ownership of the adjacent lands. And so here tonight with JT Flowers, your fellow HAAB member and representative of Albina Vision Trust. So JT, I'll turn it over to you as well for some additional comment on that.
Yeah, I don't have much additionally to say, but the resolution that we're proposing would effectively establish a work plan that would allow us to answer some unanswered questions around the limitations of the governance process as it exists. It's rooted in a principle that's very foundational to the work that we do, which is that ownership matters, that Black ownership matters, and that ownership not only just of the land beneath our feet, but of the development processes that shape these spaces matter, and that it's going to be vitally important for us as a community to make sure that we are driving and shaping this work from top to bottom, not just as we build the highway cover, but as we start to imagine what could be built atop it and for whom that development, who that development centers. Yeah. And happy to answer any questions folks might have on this end.
I do see one hand, Estelle.
Could I get a copy of what you guys are going to present, or?
Yeah, absolutely. We can make sure that everyone, that we get that out to the HAAB.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. I want to say, Mr. Washington, one last question before we move forward. Mr. Washington? I see his hand raised, but he hasn't unmuted. Karanja, I see that you have to leave as well. Mr. Washington, if you get unmuted before we...
Yeah, I'm unmuted.
There you go.
I like to be a part of that and to make sure that I have the times and invitation that I need to be available to be at this, to
At
be
the
present.
meeting? Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
is the HAAB going? Is presenting there?
So the meeting this month is in Medford, Oregon, but there is availability virtually. So Erica, I'm going to make sure that you have the OTC details and items, and then can distribute that out to the HAAB from there.
So is the HAAB present at this meeting?
No, the HAAB is not present as part of the presentation for this.
Okay. Okay.
I want to say thank you for all of the work. It is a lot to manage that much information. This was our attempt to cover a lot of ground in one engagement. Thank you for your patience, for your involvement, for spending 3 hours of your evening talking about this important project. I want to appreciate the technical team. That it's a lot for them to condense all of that information. And we've been working diligently to make sure that we can have a productive meeting today. Thank you to all of the guests who joined in. As Megan mentioned earlier, this will not be our last opportunity to engage around the Rose Quarter project. There is much work and advocacy yet to make this project a reality. And as we see when we come together, we can make it happen. Dr. Holt, if you wanted to close us out, we are at 7:05.
I appreciate it. I'm going to defer to Brendan. I keep seeing him come in and out. I think it would be great to hear from him. We haven't heard from him in a minute.
No, Dr. Holt, just showing my face and saying hello. I think we would like your words, sir. But thank you for the recognition, and thank you for everyone's work here tonight. I appreciate being able to watch from the background.
Good to see you, sir. Let me take us back to where we started, or at least what I contextualized the work in, the whole concept of Humpty Dumpty. I made a statement that I want to build on briefly, and that is the splatter matters. It's the broken pieces that we're talking about. Broken pieces of community, broken pieces of people's lives, trauma impacted, trauma informed folks. And I also encourage those who don't understand the trauma to listen, to lean in and give an ear. I appreciated Leslie's response to say, we have people with PhDs, master's degrees, we have lawyers, we have people that are in this space that have been thoughtful and engaged, but they're not just those. They're the people of the splatter. They're the folks whose lives have been impacted around this. And the truth of the matter is the people who are closest to the answer are the ones who are closest to the problems. So I appreciate the courage of the Oregon Department of Transportation to do business differently and to highlight restorative justice. This is just a beginning. $450 million is a great reason to celebrate, but we're not over the finish line. We've still got a lot of work to do. I want to encourage us to keep leaning in. Thanks, HAAB. Thanks for the work you've done. AVT, as you're stepping in and doing this lift in partnership in the city and ODOT, the agencies, we can put Humpty Dumpty back together in a new way, together again. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you all. Have a great evening. Thank you so much.
This is wild. Good night.
Great to see everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Erica and Dr. Holt.
Our pleasure.